So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that our meetings and our neighborhoods here at UBC are on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Musqueam people. And I'll just note that no conflicts of interest or perceived potential conflicts of interest have been reported to me for this open session of the board meeting. Would anyone like to raise a possible conflict of interest at this time? Okay, not seeing any, then I will call us to order. And I want to start with the approval of the agenda. And just to note, I am going to amend the motion there to add one item, so just be on at the ready. So I move that the board approve the January 2026 open session agenda with the addition of item E2, report from electoral area A representative Jen McCutcheon. And I'm just adding that because I've got word from Jen that she is she's running a little late from a meeting, but she is able to join us. Okay, and then all in favor? Motion carries. I guess the second was from Evan. Motion carries. And the minutes, I move that the board approve the December 16th, 2025 open session meeting minutes as circulated. Seconded by Jake. Corrections or conditions? All in favor? Motion carries. So with that, we turn to the external reports and presentations, and I'll start with the campus and community planning monthly report. And Carol, if you'd like to start us off.
Thanks, Eagle. Good evening, everyone. The report is before you and in the agenda package. Happy to answer any questions or take questions back to planning. Maybe one thing I'll say in the community update section, if you haven't heard of this event before, I just wanted to highlight it here. It's the Kids Takeover UBC event that happens during Family Day long weekend. And it's an initiative that brings kids of the neighborhoods into the campus and allows them to take over managing some of the facilities and play big roles in many of our cultural facilities and organizations across the campus. It's a really, really popular event, and it's so great to see families coming onto the campus and enjoying the amenities that the campus has to offer. And the tickets just went on sale, and they go like hotcakes. So if you have friends with young children or have young children yourself, I encourage you to check this out.
Okay, very exciting event. I've seen it in action before, and the kids love it, and it's very busy. And, highly recommend. Are there any questions for Carol? Yeah, I do have a question for you, and it combines two items that are in your report. One of them, the Inspiring Community Grants, which are a wonderful opportunity that includes residents of the UNA to apply for and receive small grants, up to $500, I believe, to fund projects of different kinds. They can be community building projects, they can actually be physical projects, and I think you might be aware that a group of neighbors and I did a little free library. We built a library with the support of those grants, and it was a wonderful project. It's a wonderful little library. Toot our horn. But the other thing that you know, I guess you know every month, is the development permits that are granted. And when I applied for the development permit for the free library, I had to work with the development permit process and forms and whatnot that were made for really large developers and enormous projects potentially, whatever. And there was some discussion of the possibility of creating a small projects stream for development permits. And I'm wondering if there's been any progress on that front, and if when there is, I would suggest that it's something that would actually help foster activity, I suppose you might say, in terms of, possible small projects in the public realm.
Thanks, people. It's a great comment, and I think there's lots of opportunities to streamline the process and remove some of those barriers, because it can be quite daunting when you look at the requirements for applying for a permit. There's a new development manager too, so when you were going through that process, the new development manager has been with us for, I don't know, a few months now. And so there's work to update both the permitting process with some more technical capacity and also streamlining. So I'll do that back, and I think it's a really great comment when those updates have been made to make sure that there's some effective communication alongside encouraging people to apply for grants. Often the two do go hand in hand, particularly when they have infrastructure.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I'll just add that, small community-driven projects in the public realm really are powerful ways of inspiring community that connects to the grants and the goals of the grants, but even without the grant funding. And it's something that could be great if we, community planning and UNA can work together and making it easier for residents to do those kind of community projects.
Yeah.
Anything else? I asked myself, do I have anything else? Not hearing that, I'll just note that Jen McCutcheon did inform me that she was running a little bit late, and we've gotten relatively quickly to the portion of the meeting when we would ask her to give her report. She's not here yet, so I would like to just defer item E2 and reintroduce that item at a time that seems convenient for Jen and the rest of the board. So with that, we move on to the management reports, and I'll turn things over to Paul to start us out with the CAO report. Should we back it up?
So, Jen, welcome. It just happens that the moment before you walked in, we were at the point in the meeting when it would be your opportunity to give a report, and we were going to defer it until you were ready. Would you like a moment, or would you be open to giving your report at this time, just a verbal report? You can introduce yourself and take questions.
Yep, I'm happy to. With sound, is it okay to just speak like this? Or?
Well, there's a microphone here. It comes from here. And just to make it work, push that one. It goes into everybody.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry I'm late. Yeah, so for those that don't know, most people, but I'm Jen McCutcheon, and I'm the electoral area director. And so electoral area is any part of the Metropolitan Regional District that is not part of the municipality. So that includes the BC and UNA, as well as the UEL out on this peninsula, as well as in other pockets of land. I'm sorry, I would like to be here more regularly. I do have a standing conflict, which makes it tough. So that role, I'm elected by residents in the UNA and in UBC and the UEL and other parts of electoral area A, and it gives me a seat on the Metro Vancouver Regional District Board and on the TransLink Mayor's Council for Regional Transportation. So I'm your representative and our representative on this board. In terms of a report, there's not a lot really to report on. TransLink has been doing some engagement around moving the B-line stop that is on University Boulevard at Western Parkway. That stop is closer than it should be for rapid, not technically a rapid bus, but buses like 99 that normally bus stops are about 800 meters apart, and that was 300 meters from the bus loop. So Transit has just finished the engagement. I haven't heard the results and the outcome of the engagement on that, moving that stop further east towards Leyland. So that's one thing. Sorry, I ran here. On the Metro Vancouver side, there isn't a lot, and certainly very happy to see questions. A couple things that got my commitment of interest. Metro Vancouver passes its budget for the region at the end of October. Budget passed with a 2.5% increase, so quite low in terms of just keeping up with inflation. There are some major projects coming up and in process through Metro Vancouver, especially on the sewage side. So the North Shore wastewater treatment plant is underway and it's a large project. The next big project that will come up for sewage for needing to be redone is our own sewage plant, which is Iona. That's a very, very large sewage treatment plant. And we recently, we're sort of in the planning stage for that. We recently changed the way that we are going to be implementing that. From we're going to go to all the way to tertiary care or tertiary treatment, which is the cleanest water we could. Now we are going to do that in a stepwise fashion where we go to secondary first and then upgrade that to tertiary, which is cheaper in the short term, longer, more expensive in the long term, to get to that increased water treatment. On a more local level, Metro Parks, who run Pacific Spirit for Regional Park, they are changing, the whole park system are changing the signage in the parks to be more clear around where dogs are allowed only on leash, where they're off leash, if the dog is under control, and where dogs are not allowed. And they're still undergoing an assessment specifically for this park around sort of dog management across the whole park that I haven't heard the results of yet. I think my knowledge is still ongoing. So those are a few updates, but I'm happy to take any questions on those or.
Well, thanks so much, Jen. And are there any questions or input at this time? Sandy?
Thank you for the updating. My question is on the budget for Electric A. This region, as a resident here, I know I pay service levy, one on city side, one on rural property. So I am thinking of the city side is for Metro Vancouver services provided for UA region, right?
Yeah, so you wouldn't pay a city, and I'm not the best on the budget stuff here, so if anyone wants to help me out on this, but our taxes are tied to the city of Vancouver taxes, but we don't pay any taxes to the city of Vancouver. But as you say, some of the taxes that we pay sort of through UBC do go for our regional services, which mostly are sewer, but also sewer and water, as well as the other services that come from the regional district. Athena, I don't know, am I correct on?
Yes.
Anything you want to add? Or,
Yeah, you are correct, yeah.
And there's a rural property tax.
Right.
And that goes to the province. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
And well, and then from there, it goes in various directions, but that's not how Metro Vancouver is funded.
No, it's funded, I mean, maybe from you, but through the UBC. Like our fire, goes back into like fire and police services, but not municipal.
Just a double confirm, as resident here, we pay two parts of service levy. One is for city, one is for rural property tax, right?
So there are two, the total taxes, quotation marks, because they're not taxes, because this is not a municipality, but the equivalent of taxes that residents pay are twofold. The levy that's paid to the University of British Columbia, which is based on Vancouver tax rate, but it's not paid to the city, it's not paid to Vancouver, it's paid to UBC. We then receive funding to the UNA to do our services based on that levy. And then as Eagle pointed out, the rural tax rate, which is paid to the province of British Columbia. So those are the two that make up what you see in your annual tax bill.
I think there are resources on the UNA website that describe in more detail the taxation structure, and I believe also, I'm a renter, so I don't get the levy, but I believe the levy statement that you receive includes information about where the taxes go. So I would pull out your last statement or invoice, I guess, of your levy, and there should be a description there, and as well as the information that the UNA has made available just as a public service on its website. Right. Jen, I have a question, and I will say it's on behalf of Ron Bourgeois, who's not able to be here tonight, or at least not at the moment. But and I have conveyed it to you, and I know you've given me an answer insofar as you knew the answer before, but I would like to just kind of bring it up because this is something that residents have expressed questions and concern about, and it has to do with the forest management practices of Pacific Spirit Park in the interface with essentially a very dense city. And mostly, I think what we were looking for is just some resources that can help us understand how Metro Parks approaches forest management, and essentially the kind of, like we talk about fire smart, but that's from the end of the homeowner, right? But it's like managing that interface between a very dense and occasionally very dry forest and housing.
Yeah, thanks for the question, and I sent you back what I had received back from the Parks Department, but I think the real nuance here is what you're talking about, which is that interface between, by far, the most heavily used park, and, as you said, a highly dense population. So to back up from that for a second and just talk about how Metro Parks approaches forest management, most of the parks are not that interface, certainly not such a busy park and such a dense area. It really is a sort of natural process that they follow. I don't know the technical terms, but basically a tree falls, they let the tree fall, the tree eventually will biodegrade, and that will provide nutrients to the forest, and it's just a natural process. It's also from a budget perspective, if you look on a map at the size of the parks that Metro Vancouver manages, they simply do not have the resources to manage that vast space in a sort of more active way. So that's the answer for the Metro Parks in general. I'm not aware, I mean, I can look, I'm not aware of maybe resources just speaking too much to that. I would say it's maybe more, and I have brought it up with them, but maybe it's a conversation that, I and UNA has with the Parks Department around, are there instances such as, there's a few, not even all of Pacific Spirit Park necessarily, although the fire started anywhere in the park, in those dry conditions, going to be very tricky, but even as a start, scenarios, for example, near campus, near restaurants, near cancer, that maybe there are exceptions to that rule. Maybe there are differences that we could be asking to be done because of that unique situation that we have.
Yeah, I think that's something that we may well find
find ourselves wanting to follow up on. I think that, from the UBC side, I think there has been attention given to the interface, at least in the Westbrook neighborhood plan. Like you have basically a sidewalk in the street separating the forest from the housing, right? And that's a buffer of sorts, and it's just Hampton. That's the exception, the way that it's built, and it's built really so close to Jake.
Yeah, I live in Hampton Place at the end of Balmoral, so we back right onto the forest there, and it's great. And, there have been more frequently over the last few years now, residents asking about, the fuel, in that, whether it's 30 or 40 or 50 meters from, the back of our fence into the forest. So much, for sure, you can't clear the whole park. That would be just an impossibility. But there should be more attention to certainly those areas that are backing right onto, because there's no break. There's the fence and then there's the forest, which, I'd argue 9 times out of 10, it's great. But then when somebody says, well, I'll look fire after, 3 weeks of hot weather, they're at a point.
Agreed. And I'm not sure, where that interface then, like, is that we sort of take away some of the parkland? Or is that something that's done on that, 30 to 40 meters of, on the property side? I don't know, that's complicated, but I think a starting point is maybe sort of how is the excess debris, perhaps in, the fire smart principles that, places like Whistler that have a lot of interface with forest. I've done a tour with fire smart up there as part of the museum to sort of look at what they do, where they're, there's things like that that could be done, again, not across the whole forest, but maybe in that buffer zone, just on the edge. And I think that would be a worthwhile, I'm happy to have that conversation. I think it would also be stronger, with UNA and myself, but we can follow up. If you want that to be stepwise, where I speak with them first and then we meet together, or we speak all together.
Thanks, Jen. And I think we, as a board and the UNA as an organization, need to kind of reflect and think about what we might want for next steps. So we appreciate should it come to that, the opportunity to meet with you and perhaps with representative of Metro. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thanks so much. It was great to see you, and we'll follow up. Hopefully, I might have a chance to meet with you at some point as well.
Yeah, I would just say, although I'm not here in person very often these days, I am happy to meet at any stage with people. So please feel free, or also just, if there's email questions if you have, please continue to. I know, thank you, you've been forwarding, for example, some of Ron's questions. So
Great, thanks so much. All right, now with that, we can now move on to the management report, and now turn things over to Paul for the CEO's report.
Thank you very much. I think this month is pretty generic in terms of my reporting. Notwithstanding the holiday season in the month of December, it's primarily taken up with visions to budget so that we can process it through the process. So highlights are laid out as they are typically in the report. I'm happy to mention we have.
Great. Are there any questions on the CAO's report? Not hearing any, we move on to communications and Glenda.
Hi, everybody. My reports before, I just want to add some extra context to our social media because we're quite proud of our December results. December was a really busy month for us. We saw record numbers of our social media metrics, and to date, December 2025 has been our strongest month. Significant increases across all of our performance indicators, particularly we received a record of 138,000 views, which is an increase of 275 from the previous month. And for context, the previous record was 80,000 views in September 2025. We also reached 26,000 unique users which is an increase of 268%. 407 interactions. Interactions are likes, shares, comments. That's an increase of 379%, and a record 1,099 clicks, which is an increase of 364%. We largely attribute the spike to video content that we created for the new dog park, which performed really exceptionally well. We know that video works, and our goal is to produce more video in the future. However, it's challenging because producing video content is exponentially more time consuming than static content. So that's been kind of our big challenge. But yeah, it's really cool to see a difference once you start getting into video. I'm happy to answer any questions about any other part of my report.
We see the number here from Instagram. Can you remind us like what other social media do we have? Like we have Facebook or YouTube?
Yeah, we have Facebook. We have YouTube, but it's not from our previous experience. YouTube is not where our audience lives. Really, our audience lives on Instagram, so we do quite a hard focus on Instagram. We're also wanting to explore TikTok in the future, but it's still under discussion because, again, it's video content. Video content is really, really time consuming. We don't have the resources for something like that currently. We do have Facebook as well, and we've seen through just resources that we put in through ads and all that stuff that it's less than 10% of all of the interactions that we have in social media. So yeah, like Instagram really is like 90% of our audience.
Maybe any other questions? Right, thank you, Glenda. Moving on to the recreation report, Dave.
Good evening to the board. Hope you're all well. So the December report is our kind of wrap up, and it's our slowest time of the year. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight for you is that we once again had great success with our winter celebration. Santa Claus did make an appearance. Growth in the number of attendees to our winter masquerade party. That's really important because that is a community-led event. The UNA is just, we support it both with resources as well as individuals. And the last one I wanted to sort of touch on is just a reminder that now that we've finished the fall, we'll be bringing in a comparison report that will be available sometime in February.
Thanks so much, Dave. Questions about the recreation report? Danny?
That is page 17. About the community feedback. Would you please give us a brief on the community feedback? Thank you.
Sorry, I just had to find the page. Yes, so we took a look at our programming, and as we went through all of our recreation programming, at the end of every term, we do send out surveys to all of our participants. And over that period of time, the information we got back was that we didn't have the buy-in that we hoped. We only had, as it states, 36 adults, 24 youth and children. Pickleball is our biggest response. It's always our biggest response, more demand for pickleball. On the good news side of that, UBC has now opened up available spots for the public with pickleball, and we're able to inform them of that. Other than that, we didn't get any real feedback that was negative or overly positive. It was just everybody was really happy with the programs, with the instructors, and we're hoping in the future to be able to touch to more of our participants of our programs looking forward.
I have a pickleball follow-up too, actually. So first of all, I'm gonna slip a little feedback of my own in here by way of asking. Did you receive quite a bit of feedback related to the lines on the court of
pickleball courts, and I'll just ask my second question too, so you can just answer. And then second of all, you mentioned that UBC is offering or has some pickleball space that might be available to the wider public. Could you, or I don't know if Carol would be the one, but just tell us so that we could tell the people in our lives who are passionate about pickleball, which facility that is, and if there's anything else that we should know about resident use of those pickleball opportunities.
Certainly, to answer question one, yes. The probably is about a 50-50 split between we need more pickleball, we want free pickleball, and the lines that are on the floor. Those lines were put down apparently by an instructor previous, quite a few years ago. They've been difficult to come up. The current pickleball instructor that we have is looking at a different arrangement for being able to fit more pickleball so that it doesn't reflect from the light in the hallway. So we're currently looking at that on how to get that up. I'm consulting with Wagman and his team on how to get that up and what procedure we want to do moving forward. And clearly, if we down the road ever replace the flooring in there, we would look at getting the lines for pickleball put in. That's for question one. For question two, yes, the building is the old gymnasium, the SRC. Pickleball is being offered midday. And initially it was brought in to provide an opportunity for students first to have an opportunity to play pickleball. However, the students have not really run out there to play pickleball. So we've been letting people know at our front desk, and I can certainly communicate with, because this information just came through, I can communicate with our comms department to make sure that information is out there to let people know when those classes are available, the procedure to go, and be able to book the free time because it is dropped in.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and I think we do benefit, we UNA benefit by reminding our residents of their opportunities to use UBC facilities at a discount too. And I just having used my UNA discount at the aquatic center, I realized that it was a better discount than my faculty discount at UBC. And so anyway, yeah, it's good to provide, because of course UNA residents through their money do in fact contribute to the costs of these facilities and opportunities. Thank you. Evan.
Just suddenly like realized that we don't actually have an outdoor sport court in the Westbrook area at all, like for the resident use, right? We have a tennis court at the stadium, like, we don't have it in Hampton Place. So, I mean, like, we already see that there's such a high demand for pickleball. And it's pretty good sport, and so we're just considering like to have a pickleball court, like outdoor court.
Somewhere.
I'm not going to answer that question.
A few years ago, the UNA board tried to get a sports court landed in Westbrook, and it was met with some opposition from the community because of noise impacts and other things. Outdoor sport courts are difficult to plan next to residential areas because of the noise impact. However, having said that, we've just gone through a process to update the Westbrook Place neighborhood plan with the extension of Westbrook South. And as part of that plan, there is some intention around creating multi-use sport recreational space as part of that expansion. So planning has happened in response to community feedback and looking at ways to integrate that as part of Westbrook.
And that's along the area right now that's known as the research park, which would expand. So there's a new park over there, kind of by what Evolve and those buildings. So it would be back in there, as I understand. I know nothing's been decided, exactly what will go where, but that's the area.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And Evan, great question. Thanks. Any other questions on the recreation side of things. Okay, so moving on to the operations and sustainability report, and
Thank you very much, Eagle. Good evening, everybody. Before I start, I just want to start with quickly clarify one item that I brought up in the report, and then later on I will going through some highlights of the operations report. A quick clarification for the operations report is regarding the PRC7 tree issue that we noted. I noted there may be some confusion in the way of the report, how it draft. Just want to be clarified the issues flagged by arborists regarding the temporary storage location is intended for tree number 11 only, while there are more trees, which is a larger group trees, has been relocated. That was better planted and with a more fulsome planting with the lesson that we learned from tree 11. So with the help of arborists and also CNCP, the current storage location for those trees are in a suitable area. And just to add on that, the journey will continue to monitor the tree health until the relocation to the final locations. Now going back to the UNA operations report. So a few items that I would like to highlight. One of the items that I would highlight is that we are going to include upcoming and expected road-related activities into our monthly operations report. So it will provide some easy to identify for residents or for the board members to see the upcoming high impact road closures activities. And then another item that I would like to flag is that for the Green Depot, moving to sustainability report. For the Green Depot, going quickly to page number 24, we have a 2024 November versus 2025 Green Depot performance results. So noted that we have a significant increase in terms of collections, with more than 40% increase of recyclable collected, as well as 30% increase in visitors numbers. So that we are looking at providing the same amount of comparable operations hours. So it means our efficiencies and the needs for Green Depot has been significantly increased. And looking a little bit further down for November under review, the diversion rate has been increased appropriately, and also the circular growth rate, which is the free table. The free table is intended to benefit and recycle within our community, and this initiative has been extremely successful and improved by 56%. But also at the same time, two items that I would like to flag, and we are working on this to improve reduce incorrect or non-acceptable items growth rate, and also to address something concern that we noted. We are working internally within the operations department to find ways to support Green Depot staff as well as REC team member. And also we are working on the education campaigns to improve and reduce the dumping issue that we noted. And that's it from me. Happy to answer any questions.
okay, Jake.
Just a comment, I like the dashboard information, easy to read, and, summarizes things very quickly. You don't have to go through a lot of verbiage for that.
Thank you, Jim. Just want to share that the dashboard report is created by Lydia, our Green Depot coordinator. She has played a significant role to make sure Green Depot is running smoothly.
Make sure to pass along the praise. It's really wonderful. It's great to hear. Evan?
Just want to discuss the concern you addressed, the dumping outside the Green Depot. But do we have a camera like installed outside Green Depot? I mean, like usually for those kind of service, it's a good idea to have a camera over there. Yeah, thank you very much for highlighting that. Yes, we do have a camera outside of the Green Depot, but at the same time, it's a bit of a challenge across all municipality that dumping is an issue, and it's a behavior issue that is challenging to address, but it is also something that we are trying to solve, especially during the holiday period when Green Depot depot is closed. And internally, we are reviewing the process to bridge the gap where people can potentially bring their items into the center at a designated location in order to prevent additional dumping issue down the road.
Thanks, Whitlow. And, Sandy, yes. Oh, okay, follow.
Just can continue the people. Yeah, same. I have another question is that because from statistics, I see is that Green Depot is very popular. It's having resident law. Have you considered maybe like expand the Green Depot service to include some like resale, for example? I mean, like give example for like scooter or something. If I have a nice scooter, I don't want to just give it away or like for free like donation, but I want to sell like for $20. I mean, like it could be a huge demand like for people that use this stuff. Like you want to sell it.
Yes, thank you very much for the comment and suggestion. Definitely, in terms of having a platform for people to sell or resell items, it's something that internally have discussed. And at this moment, the main challenge that we have is having the appropriate resource and people to administrate such system. So it is something that we can take it back and look into it, but at the same time, our resource level will not be able to support such service.
I wanted to note actually along the lines of what you're suggesting, Evan, is that there are a couple of Facebook groups that are actually custom, made for what you're describing. So there's the Buy Nothing. There are two Buy Nothing sites, but there's a Buy Nothing UBC, and that's for giving stuff away or asking politely if anyone has something that you might need. And it's a way of connecting people, who don't need something and who do need something. So that's number one. And then number two, UBC Buy Sell is a very, very active Facebook marketplace where people sell scooters, they sell coolers, they sell all kinds of things that you wouldn't even imagine they might be selling. All legal, but anyway, there's a pretty active online marketplace. So that's something to keep in mind, and we're thinking about. One other thing I wanted to mention, Wayland, and this is just a kind of for your and our information, but at UBC I think it's the Life Building, there is a free store, and it functions a bit like the Green Depot's cost-free kind of give away or take something, leave something. And I've noticed, I know it's an issue with the Green Depot that in many ways you hit capacity in terms of the stuff that you can handle, the throughput, so to speak, in that space. And we might consider reaching out to UBC to see if they might be interested in some of the excess capacity of the free store. And I say that because we have a lot of residents who are their families, they're more established, some students obviously, but who live in the UA neighborhoods. But on campus at UBC and people who use that campus, there are literally thousands of students, many of them on quite low incomes, for whom the stuff that we're trying to get rid of in our apartments here could be really valuable for them in the circumstances that they find themselves in their studies. And so it would be part of kind of bridging that town-gown divide, and it would be something of a service. And maybe there are some potential volunteers out there in our community who might be able to facilitate something like that. And I know we don't make policy like that here on the ground as we go, but I did want to bring that up because I think it's a valuable opportunity for us going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Rico. Definitely we'll look into that. Previously, we tried to work with UBC, with the thrift store, but due to the ongoing changes in the contact, we are not able to successfully establish. But knowing the new initiative, happy to get our team to look into that, and hopefully we can bridge it.
Carol?
That's a great suggestion, Eagle, and, what, and I wonder too about, maybe through conversations with the coordination work that's happening on the implementation of the NCAP. I see this as being an extension of some of those community, programs, and so, from the campus planning team, there might be some capacity to help explore and support through that coordination, because you're meeting with there's, yes. And then also through the safe and connected campus programming opportunities to leverage some of these areas. So just suggesting that to leverage the campus planning partnerships and networks that we have in place to help explore this, if that's of interest.
Well, thanks, Carol. And again, it's one of those kind of win-win-win opportunities. But of course, also, we have to have the capacity to undertake things like this. So it's kind of figuring out how to do what we can within the capacity that we have. Eventually take advantage, not take advantage, but mobilize volunteers as well. Are there any other questions or suggestions? Yes, Sandy?
Page 21st, the upcoming handover of the workforce apartments starting on January 16th. The question is, do you know how many residents will be in the apartment? How many buildings will be available this year? And the forecast for this year? The reason is how can we prepare for the increased residents for our services for them? Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. So in terms of the move-in that we are expecting, that is the new building located just across the street on Bernie Avenue and Ross. And that is only one building as far as I know in terms of private market building is going to be completed within the 2026 year. But having said that, on top of the moving in for faculty staff rental building, there is an ongoing moving in and out seasonally. Typically from July to September is the peak, and then there's also another one moving in and out during January, also during June as well. So there are about 3 times that we will see a significant amount of residents moving in and out, while the peak will be typically happening around July to September before school starts. And then in terms of how many units will be moving in, I don't have those numbers, but I can contact BBC Property Trust to see if they have a general number thinking about the turnover rate of their rental building. That I can look into it, and if I can find anything, I can bring it back to you.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, with that, we'll move on to the finance report. Tina.
Good evening, directors. My report is before you. Since I will be covering, there will be another report separately for budget later on. I think I probably will reserve all the budget and then the public consultation discussion a little bit later. But I think one thing I do wanted to highlight, which is not in the report, is in the month of January, the UBC rep, along with Chris and also Camilla, they all attended the Finance and Audit Committee meeting to help answer some questions, which is very helpful. I just wanted to take this opportunity to let the board know that the collaboration is there and continue to be there. And thank you for their attention and kindness of showing up to help to make the process much more easier. Yeah.
Thank you, Tina. Are there any questions, absent those surrounding the budget, which will come later? Okay, so that concludes the management reports. And I'll just say I'm not one for New Year's resolutions, but I am working on gratitude. And so I did want to thank all of the managers, not just for your reports, but also for all the work that those reports highlights. And that it's, well, without all your work and the work of all your staff, the UNA simply would not run. So thanks to all of you. With that, we move on to, I guess you could call it a little bit of housekeeping. This is the UNA
board meeting schedule report, and Paul.
Thanks very much. The board will recall we presented an information report and laid out the schedule for the 2026 meetings in late 2025. Since that time, and the adjustments we've been making to be able to provide the board information packages and agenda packages further in advance of meetings. We did look at jigging the schedule slightly, and I think board members are all aware of this, but this is part of our bylaws to make sure that the public's also aware of this. So we've updated the meeting list. The first two meetings of the year are staying the same, and then from March onward, we'll be moving to a later meeting date in the month, in part to accommodate our agenda production cycle, so the board has time to consider all the information. It's just provided for information, and it will be available already on the website.
Okay, unless there are any questions, we will move on to big business. And that is the second draft of the 2026-27 UNA budget. And we'll turn this back over to Nina.
Budget again. Okay, so the second draft of budget was presented and discussed at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Again, the major changes for this version compared to the first one is the levy was projected to have an increase, which is a good thing for the UNA. That being said, because of the first draft has already reported further details of what the project is, the second draft is actually mainly to highlight what the major changes are, which I believe are red-lighted and also highlighted in the report section. So what I wanted to say might be due to, I think, Sandy's question earlier, might be, or I want to probably elaborate a little bit more in terms of the levy. Every year, the resident here will pay two payments in terms of levy and tax. The first one is to UBC Treasury. That one is for the neighbors levy, which is the fund also funded to the operation of the UNA. So that's the first one. The second one is the payment goes to the Ministry of Finance. That is for the province, and that one I actually wanted to correct. They call it rural area tax, but rural area tax is just part of it. Actually, there is actually many different smaller, I would say, taxes and charges being embedded to that. School tax is one of those, and then and there's various ones. So I just want to clarify. But the two, if you added the one you pay for the Ministry of Finance and then added the one you pay to the UBC Treasury, those two will be equal to what you pay as a resident in the city of Vancouver. So that's why you cannot just look at one thing and then compare, because the least I think embedded is like the city of Vancouver resident will pay the exact amount of the city of the resident in the UNA. So that concept is actually very important, I think, as a resident of the UNA. So that one I want to highlight. I think other than that, the other one that I wanted to highlight is for this budget, there is actually a board project line for $190,000. That number currently is open for the board for any project that will be discussed and for that purpose. So I just wanted to let you know, if there's nothing, the board gave no direction during the year, so most likely we will have a surplus year in the next fiscal, because there are money set aside for that.
Thank you for that introduction. And Jake.
Just for the other directors that weren't involved in the finance and committee meeting, this is only going, budget is only going now to public for consultation and commenting. So I wouldn't get too deep, wouldn't worry about getting too deep into the budget right now. Let's wait to see what the people come back with, and then we'll have another kick at this at the finance committee level. Once we see what the public comes back with. So I wouldn't get too bothered yet about some of the things that are in there. I mean, there may be questions and maybe there's nothing in there that bothers you. You know, like the $190,000, that's, you know, the board can talk about that at a later date. I think it's a great placeholder for sure. And some of the other things that are there. So just for the other factors that aren't financing.
Thank you. Thanks, Jake, for that additional context. And I guess I would say I will recall for us that in the previous draft of the budget, and this happens every year during budgeting, there are always kind of proposed projects and a list of you know, whether they're must have, whether there would be nice. I don't think you use the term wishful thinking, but you know, like things that, you know, would be wonderful in an ideal world if we had all the money in the world. Anyway, there's a kind of you know, a hierarchy of needs of those projects, and inevitably many of them cannot be funded in a given year's budget. And so for us as a board, you know, should everything go forward and we have that $190,000 kind of money to work with, it's also an opportunity for us to think about what we as a board and what you know, staff identify as things that would really have a positive impact on residents and concrete achievements that we could use, projects that we could spend some of that money on. So I think I appreciate that opportunity and I think hearing from both residents and staff about that those monies can be used to benefit the neighborhoods. Other questions, comments before we?
Add something.
Yes, please.
I also wanted to add something in terms of the public consultation and open house because it involved all of us. So the director definitely have, I think the invite has been sent out. It should be as a placeholder in your calendar that you're invited to come to the open house, which is on January 29th, from 5:30 to 7:30. So yeah, so I mean, if you have any question, you feel free. As I mentioned in my earlier report, that there's a lot of planning has gone into it already. So this is, if you have any question to prep you, I think this is a good platform for you to raise those questions. Yeah. So I just want to note that so you know that. Yeah. So
Thank you so much, Athena. Are we ready for the motion? Jake, do you want to make the motion? Do you have it there?
The motion is that the board approve the publication of the second draft of the fiscal year 2026-2027 budgets for public consultation.
Do we have a second? Oh, Sandy, first you were pointing for directions. Thank you. All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Thanks so much so far, Athena. I know we're not done, but you and the finance committee, Paul, you put a lot of thought and work into this. And looks good so far. I'm sure we'll get feedback. Jake.
First question, Athena, is it in your budget to provide donuts and coffee in the open house?
yes, as mentioned, I think some.
That wasn't even a serious question.
No, there will be a consolidated package. They don't have chapter 1, chapter 2, it will be just one package, which highlighted all the key essential. The com team has been working very closely with it. And also I wanted to highlight, as I quickly learned from Eagle for the gratitude part, so it's not just me and Paul, I think it's alongside with all the manager, I think along with Lawrence, too, they all put a lot of work into making this possible. So it's definitely a teamwork. So yes, there will be many, I think many information about that. Yeah, I answer your question.
Jake, I also note that 100% of the $190,000 discretionary budget remains available to directors should additional donuts be required.
Thank you. Sandy?
Yeah, I would like to thank you everyone for putting this budget public consultation at open house. I think this is the first one to UNA, right? For budget consultation, public consultation, yeah. Really a lot of work, but it's necessary for residents to be involved and for us to make the decision, I think. So thank you, everyone.
Well, and to add to that, I mean, the public has had lots of opportunity, lots of communication of, the process of being able to comment on the budget. There's an article in the paper in December. There's going to be publication of the Times for this public consultation. And then there'll still be the online consultation as well, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So the public will have more opportunity than they've ever had to make comment. So for those that don't make comment, too bad.
Yeah, I think this is a great, the open house is a nice addition and yeah, lots of opportunity for people to learn about the budget and to give their input. Thank you. Moving on, we have some sub-license agreements coming up. And so we'll start with the cycling without age sub-license agreement, and I think Wegland's on tap to introduce that.
Thanks very much, Eagle. For the Vancouver Cycling Without Age sub-license agreement, it's a follow-up of the October 2025 UNA UBCPT bike cage license report. So in summary, is for the previous bike cage license report, UBCPT allowing with that specific license enable UNA to use the bike cage, while also giving the opportunity for us to sub-license the operation and the maintenance of the bike cage with Vancouver Cycling Without Age Society. I'm not going to go deep into detail about the Cycling Without Age Society, but I will just go straight through into the license agreement that is proposed in this report. So for this proposed agreement between the UNA and the Vancouver Cycling Without Age Society, it will enable them to use the bike cage that is located in the Grand Terrace. And the proposed license term is 3 years, effective from January 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2028. And also following the recent review, the termination date for the previous UNA and UBC head lease license will be adjusted from the end of September to December 31st. That will ensure that it aligns with the Vancouver Cycling Without Age Society operations. And then this proposed license has been drafted and reviewed by our legal team. And in terms of financial implications and operation implications, we do not anticipate there is financial implications for this license, as well as for the operations. We do not expect or anticipate any significant impact to our staff responsibility because the operations of the program itself is mainly done by the Vancouver Cycling Without Age Society. And that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayland. I think this one's pretty straightforward, so I think I'll go straight to the motion. Put the motion on the table, and if there's other questions. Or do you want to do something in the meantime? Question. So we'll come to the motion in a second.
Yeah, just one simple question. I didn't take the opportunity to read all 73 pages here of these terms of the lease. Is there a simple out clause for either side in the agreement someplace? Like, some 30-day, 60-day, 90-day kind of out clause for whatever reason if either party doesn't like this?
Yes, there is an out cost in that, I believe, if I recall correctly, is 30 days.
Thanks.
Sandy?
Yeah, I'm wondering what kind of benefit our residents already got. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Sandy. So Sandy has already reached out to our recreations team to set up upcoming meeting, discuss how to collaborate in terms of providing this tri-shore service for our residents or for nearby communities.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make the motion. Oh, yeah, Carol.
Just one quick question. If this passes, then when do you think the program would be up and running?
Thank you for bringing that up, Carol. So if this passes, the program typically run during the warmer season. So we expect the program will start to have the bike move into the cage at the end of this month. But in terms of the program operation, if I recall correctly, it's between May to October. And so it means the program will start as soon as during the summertime. But don't quote me on the May date yet.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that we do know that Vancouver Cycling Without Age, I wish we had a shorter cause. That they've already secured new tri-shawls for this service, and they have the volunteers in place. In fact, I met one of the volunteers at our dog park opening. He lives not too far away, and he's very excited about starting the program. So as soon as warms up, they'll be out showing people around campus.
You mean they don't want to go out biking in the fog?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, so with that, I'll make the motion that the board approve the UNA and BCWAS sub-license agreement and authorize the chief administrative officer to execute the agreement. Seconded by Sandy. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Great. Now moving on to the Nobel Park childcare license. Wait.
Thank you very much, Hugo. It's me again, so I'll try to make it quick. In terms of this license agreement, is between the UBC and the UNA for the first childcare license. It's a new childcare facility scheduled to be opened as part of the first development in the West area. And dated expected opening will be, I'll say late of March 2026, if everything lined up. And then in terms of this report, the license itself is based on an existing license agreement that we have with UBC for another childcare facility in the Vista Point. So the arrangement of license is pretty standardized with this type of framework. So we have different parties involved in that. There's a multi-party chain agreement between the UBC, which owns the land, UBC Property Trust, which developed the space and then rented the space back to UBC, and then UBC licensed the UNA for the child care facility to operate the child care facilities. And for this specific report is focusing on the head license between the UBC and the UNA for the operations of child care. And in terms of this license agreement, the key difference between this one and the previous one in Vista Point is with this license, it has clause that incorporate to ensure all party complies to the provincial BC funding requirement. And with this funding requirement is mainly about reporting, and the reporting obligation is expected to flow directly through to YMCA for the reports. And that's pretty much it from me, and happy to answer any questions.
This is exciting news. This is a long time coming, and having more childcare spaces available for residents outside of the very expensive UBC childcare is a really wonderful thing for our neighborhoods. So glad to hear it. Are there any questions or comments before we put the motion on the floor? So maybe I'll go ahead then and move that the board approve the UBC and UNA Verve daycare license agreement and authorize the chief administrative officer to execute the agreement. Seconded by Jake. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, wonderful, thank you. And now we move on to the last of our three agreements, the Ross Drive BC Hydro Charging Agreement.
Thank you, Emilio. So for the BC Hydro fast charging station, what I would do is I just quickly go into a little bit of the background, the context of the history of fast charging station within the UNA, and then we'll quickly summarize what type of operations or financial impact that we may face. So quickly going into the history of UNA BC Hydro fast charging station. So the first fast charging station run by BC Hydro, it started way back in 2018 as a collaboration between the UNA, UBC Property Trust, with the purpose of expanding fast charging infrastructure across BC. And noticeably at that time, and continually, the fast charging station within the UNA area is the only one that is west of Beauty Street and north of 41st Avenue corridor. So basically, our fast charging station is the only one located in the area, which will be able to support a fast charging of electric vehicle up to 80% within half an hour. And subsequently, with the 2018 initiative, there is an expansion of twinning the fast charging station, which is across our community center on Waverly, from a one charging station to a two charging station setup. And with that, the development of the fast charging station, a operations and maintenance agreement also developed at that time. And it actually covers the responsibility in terms of the responsibility of the installation, of the cost, and then also the ongoing maintenance. It's all flow through to BC Hydro. Is the BC Hydro responsibility, while for the UNA responsibility is mainly remaining on the maintenance of the groundwork to making sure it's accessible and free of debris. And that's pretty much integrate with our existing maintenance of the sidewalk as well as for the roadways, which we are working with UBC for example, for the snow removal project. Now quickly going into the new fast charging station that is proposed on Ross Drive. This station and the discussion started back in September 2023. And then at that point, there are two charging stations or specific locations that BC Hydro is looking for. It's mainly a location that is close to all the amenities and also a place that can reduce residents' impact, and also at the same time is 24 hours accessible. Initially, BC Hydro proposed two locations, one location within the UBC Westbrook Village, but with that location, it cannot support a 24 hours charging. So hence the siting go back to the on-street charging location, which is on the Ross Drive area. And toward the very end of the siting process, the site B was selected, which is slightly southern location on Ross Drive, slightly south of the community soccer field and right next to the volleyball court. The main reason of why we choose, or the BC Hydro is choosing this area, is citing the underground infrastructure restriction on the site A that is located right next to the UNA Westbrook community field. And fast forward to for the project, it was first start discussion back in 2023, and then with setting report and other studies completed in 2024, but it was later to be on hold due to unexpected reason. And then it was recently brought up by BC Hydro in October, and expected the project will be approved by UBC permitting folks soon. It is at this moment in the process of permit review, and then if everything works as it's supposed to be, in the most ideal situation, the new charging station is expected to be installed in sometime in February. And with the new charging station expected to support 6 vehicle to charging concurrently. In terms of the maintenance and the financial implication, maintenance and operation implications mainly integrated with our existing service that is provided for the sidewalk as well as for the road. So we do not expect there is additional work or resource that we need to put on. While for the financial implication for the installation setup as well as the ongoing maintenance of this charging station is fully funded by BC Hydro. And then just quickly, just more high level work in terms of the arrangement, just going back into the agreement. The agreement term is 10 years and is a copy and template of the previous maintenance agreement that we have with BC Hydro. So that's about it. Any questions?
Okay, so there's a lot there. I wanted to start out with a question that may or may not require
Action on your part. So there are a couple of maps in the license of occupation document, which is, it appears to be signed by the Ministry of Transportation. And the map on page 176 indicates 3 charging units, 6 spaces, which is, I believe, what the report also says. The map on page 193 says, indicates 4 units, charging units, and 8 spaces. And so it appears to be a kind of map typo, if you will, but is that only within that Ministry of Transportation certificate of occupancy, so it doesn't affect the maintenance agreement? Like, the question is this something that needs to be corrected? Or
thank you for bringing that up. So basically, the original intent is to have more charging spaces, but subsequently, with the most updated design of the charging station and layout is with 6 charging outlet. And in terms of the agreement, I don't think there will be any implication for the agreement because it's still assigned to the same lay-by and area. And the main differences that we noted is mainly related to the design and the number of charging stations that BC Hydro subsequently updated with the most recent permit application.
And just to be, so that I'm clear and I understand this, or we all understand this, what we're voting on, or we'll vote on with this motion, is only the maintenance agreement. And that begins on page 150, and that's between the UNA and BC Hydro regarding the maintenance of the spaces around the charging stations. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The other agreements are provided for information, but those are the agreements between UBC and the province. The use of the space. Our agreement, the only concern of the board is that maintenance agreement. It's really, as I think Wegland has alluded to, it's really just maintaining our current operations.
okay, are there any other questions before we put the motion on the board? Yeah.
So 2 questions. First one, will BC Hydro pay us the maintenance fee? The second one is, who will decide the charging rate, like price? I see it's a paid service.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. In terms of maintenance fee, the hydro will not pay the UNA for the maintenance fee. UNA will maintain the sidewalk and access as part of the agreement. So it's an amenity that we are able to provide for the communities. And in terms of the charging rate of BC Hydro, that is set by the commissions, by the province, so the utility commissions, if I'm correct. And they do, if for the rating, they put it and post it in the BC Hydro information. So in terms of the rate itself, it's something set up by the province.
Evan?
Yeah, just want to use some information like the shared bike, like last month I used the shared bike near TD branch. I just used it for 1 hour. It cost me like $30. Yeah. So I mean, like for those kind of service, like EV charging or shared bike, if you can benefit the residents, we definitely will support them. But you know, I can if you know if the price rate is super high, like it's not a good use, like maybe we will have the right to we will support that the services that can give them the benefit.
That's interesting to hear about the bike share, the cost of that. That's something worth looking into.
And also the tire is flat as tire.
You should get your money back. Come first.
Yeah, those are good points and good things for us to keep in mind. I think it probably behooves all of us to kind of try out some of these things. I will hear about your experience myself. Have a look. I want to do the try shot too. The trip on the tricycle.
Well, you have to be.
I know, you might not
I'm
qualify.
55. No, I get the senior discount on Tuesdays at Shoppers Drug.
Okay, I just want to note that the chair has now commented on his third discount structure of the meeting.
You know. Okay, so thanks. Maybe I'll go ahead and try to save face a little by just putting the motion over. So I'll move that the board approve BC Hydro maintenance agreement, electrical vehicle charging stations, and authorize the chief administrative officer to execute the agreements. Do I have a second? Seconded by Evan, in spite of that very expensive bike ride that you took. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, motion carries. And I have to say it will be an exciting addition to our neighborhoods. Obviously, it doesn't benefit everybody, but in a way it does, because the expansion of electric vehicles, providing opportunities for them to fuel up, so to speak, out here in BC. And there are no gas stations out here, but we've got EV charging stations. So, you know, it's moving us in the right direction. Great to see. We still have a bit of business in the open session. I would like to go ahead with the committee chair and vice chair reappointments, if you're ready, Lauren, and then after that, we will break for dinner. Okay, so I'll turn things over to Lauren on the committee chair and vice chair reappointments.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me if I just speak like that? It's probably okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I can hear a little better if you're on the mic. So,
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So first of all, thank you. I just want to acknowledge that there have been some changes since the report went out, both in my own errors and in some folks stepping down from their roles. So I'm recognizing that both the motions and the schedule will need to have some changes made before we make any motions. So I want to acknowledge that some committees have term lengths set for chairs and vice chairs, and some don't. So the motions that I had laid out in the report, in this case, are mostly to reaffirm that people are still interested in holding the positions that they currently hold. and not necessarily in renewing terms. So in the cases where the term lengths are ending, that will happen this time next year. So I think that's something important to know before we, again, move forward. So perhaps the best thing to do is to confirm that folks are in the right place, and then I can make the appropriate edits to the motions before those are done. Does that make sense?
It does, and thank you, Lauren. There was a lot of material to pull together here, and I think I have all the corrections in my head. And so what we could do is we could just work our way through the motions. I will add the corrections as we go, and if for some reason I miscorrect the where the corrections are needed, then you can just let me know and we'll adjust. Does that sound like an efficient way to approach this to everybody? Okay, and I'll note that these are on page 194 of the agenda packet, and it's a series of reappointments of the chairs, the vice chairs, and the members of the committees. So what I'll do is, I think for efficiency's sake, I'll go through and I'll do all of them and make the corrections as we go, and then ask for a second, and then we can vote. Okay? All right, so first of all, that the board reappoint, I move that the board reappoint Director Lee and Director Bourgeois to the Finance and Audit Committee, and that the board reappoint Director Lee and Director Bourgeois as the chair and the vice chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, respectively. And that the board reappoint Director Lee to the Finance and Audit Committee. That's correction number one, right? He's Gandro is a member of that committee. Yes. I have that correct. Yes. Moving on to the next one, Governance and Human Resources Committee. Motion includes that the board reappoint Chair Glassine, Director Thomas, Director Luo. Is it Luo or Lu? Luo. Why don't you go get L-I is this? Right, no, but let me pronounce it. Luo. That's how I have pronounced it, but I always help us. So that, so instead of Lee, number two, there's Luo to the Governance and Human Resources Committee, and that the board reappoint Chair Glassine and Director Song as the chair and the vice chair of the Governance and Human Resources Committee, respectively. And I move that the board reappoint Director Kearns and Director Glassine to the Land Use Advisory Committee until December 17th, 2026. And that the board appoint Director Kearns as the chair of the Land Use Advisory Committee, December 17th, 2026. Number four, that the board appoint Director Lee and Director Bourgeois to the Community Engagement Advisory Committee until December 17th, 2026. And that the board appoint Director Lee as the chair of the Community Engagement Advisory Committee, December 17th, 2026. And the motion continues that the board reappoint Director Luo and Chair Glassine to the newspaper editorial committee, and that the board reappoint Chair Glassine as the chair of the newspaper editorial committee until December 17th, 2026. That's a correction as well. And that the board reappoint Chair Glassine, Director Reed, and Director Song to the UNA UBC Liaison Committee, and that the board reappoint Chair Glassine as the co-chair of the UNA UBC Liaison Committee. Just noting that we haven't probably won't be, but and finally that the board reappoint Chair Glassine and Director Lee and Director Kearns to the UNA AMS Joint Advisory Committee board reappoint chair last time as the co-chair of the UNA AMS joint. So does it seem like those corrections are all correct, so to speak?
I think Sandy had emailed me, so I just want to confirm, are you planning to continue on GHR or no?
I'm planning to join, however, the time, I already point out that perhaps maybe travel outside of Canada, and the time better is in the afternoon time, around the 4 p.m. kind of the time zone. Then I can join in the early time in the other side. If always 11 a.m., maybe I cannot join online if I'm traveling. Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest that we maybe follow up with that and see what we can do about the time. It might be possible to find a time that works better for all of us. It might not be possible to do so, but we'll try.
Yeah, just even as you were going through, I think I noticed one item that's missing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but number 4, motion that's reappointing Director Lee and Director Bourgeois to the Community Engagement Advisory Committee. The board also appointed Director Blow to that committee previously, so we should include Evan in that motion as well.
That's correct. Yeah, we did that. Okay. So someone has to turn off their mic. Yeah, sorry.
I'd like to continue my service in the CDC community because it's a community that need more people to help. It's right now it's making the members, so I think it's, I can help. That will help.
Yes, thank you. So my apologies. I will amend my corrected version of number 4 to include Director Luo as a member of the Community Engagement Advisory Committee. Sandy?
Igor, I remember that Director Lee, Paul Lee, he would like to join the Finance and Audit Committee.
Yes, he was included. I included him. Yes,
You made the correction verbally.
yeah, he has been attending, and yes, so he will be reaffirmed. Okay. Are there any other corrections that we missed?
No.
All right, got it now. So we have a motion with 7 items plus a few additional corrections on the table. Is there a second? Evan? All in favor? All right, motion carries. And thank you so much, Lauren, for all of your work on that. And of course, thanks to everyone for your service on these committees. So with that, we will take a 15-minute break for dinner. And so we'll reconvene around 7:20. And just to note that we do have coming up Neighbors Fund Infrastructure Reserve Project discussion, which will potentially take us all our attention. So eat well. to us with some motions with slightly different wording. So what I'll do is I'll ask Wedlin to briefly introduce the reintroduced report and briefly explain the recommended motions. And then I think we'll move on to some discussion, questions and discussion. And then we can proceed with the motions if they seem to represent the direction that the board is interested in going. So with that, I'll turn things over to you, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Hugo. And I will try to summarize the report as brief as possible. We'll quickly go over the context, the process that has taken place since early 2025, and then finally some funding arrangement recommendations. And speaking of the Hampton Place roadways, we was first set up and developed alongside with Hampton Place that was dated back in 1989. And the roadway was constructed concurrently with the neighborhood development itself. And given the age, since approximately 35 years already, the roadway has experienced significant deterioration over the past couple of years with cracking and things along that line that will require immediate repair. And in terms of the Hampton Place decorative roadway projects, a brief high-level scope of work is to remove the existing concrete roadways and then rebuilding these upgrades and then pour a new reinforced concrete that will ensure longevity and safety down the road. The design is expected to match the existing design, so it's more or less re-and-re. And thinking about the priority, this is a priority one project that is considered by the UNA that will require attention ASAP. Going back into the project timeline, the operations department went out for request for proposal back in August 2025. Last year, unfortunately, there was no quote or submissions at that point. There's a correction in the report. Instead of recannot future dated, it's August 2025 for the original request for proposal. And then later on October, we have received subsequently 3 quotes from 3 vendors. And with that quotes submitted, Beck Earthworks provided the lowest bid at that time. And going into the project implementations, just looking forward, if the project is funded and approved down the road, we expect the project will become a spring and summer project for this year, 2026. Going back into a little bit of the context of how this discussion and the project replacement discussion has been started. It stated back in early 2025 with the implementation of Neighbors Agreement 2024. UNA and UBC staff has engaged to talk about what is the best way to manage repair and replacement project for the roadways. During those discussions, we quickly noticed there are strengths from each parties. For the UNA, we are more nimble, we have a less restrictive procurement process and faster project adjustment, ideal for quick response efforts. While for UBC, they have more established technical and procurement expertise that is suitable for large-scale repair and engineering projects. And the objective of the discussion is to develop a long-term framework to proceed with the repair and replacement project. But unfortunately, today's discussion has not been finalized. But overall, both UNA and the UBC team agreed on that to develop a long-term approach to fund the UNA maintenance responsibility and the UBC repair and replacement responsibility. And also during the discussion within the UNA and UBC group, we note the UNA operations noted there is restrictions, funding restrictions in terms of how to fund a repair project. Given the road repair project sometimes is more significant, so the regular funding route with operation expense will be very challenging. While if we are trying to access internal capital reserve, the purpose of the capital reserve is mainly for tenant improvements. So the UNA operations recommend and maintain we should have the flexibility to choose the appropriate funding source, whether it is through the operational budget or through the neighbor funds reserve on a project by project basis. And fast forward, going back to the concrete replacement project, the financial implications we are looking at is the costing of the project will be at approximately $75,000 for the replacement and also additional allowance for traffic management and other testing related to it. And we would, and the team recommends that the UNA and the board to consider request the funding from the UBC Neighbors Fund Infrastructure Reserve funding in order to complete the Hampton paving and also the concrete project. And with one minor item related to the motion is the UNA has completed a Hampton Place roundabout repaving project earlier this year. And then within this report is also recommended, it's also coming from part of the board recommendation is to request the project to be covered by the Neighbors Fund Infrastructure Reserve too. So that's about it from me, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayland. And I just wanted to say a few words and kind of give my take on what's going on here, and also to give a little bit of context to the motion and how we should understand the wording of the motion. So first of all, as Wayland said, discussions on implementation of the Neighbors Agreement 2024 infrastructure repair and replacement provisions, and they're scattered in the Neighbors Agreement and some of the schedules of it, Schedule A and EU and reserved. So those are ongoing, those discussions. And don't have to get into the details of where they are and how long they might take, but it's important. I want to be just clear that that the UNA, and this is UNA residents letting us know, and UNA evaluation of the roads and infrastructure. The UNA has determined that these two projects, the one that is completed and the one that is out for tender and that is proposed, are pressing projects, and they need to get fixed. So we have two pressing repair projects, repair/replacement projects of the scope that you saw here that Lakeland outlined, and that need to be done in the interim before the final negotiation of the Neighbors Agreement repair and replacement provisions is complete. So what these motions do is they make a request that UBC fund or withdraw the funds for these projects from the Neighbors Fund Infrastructure and Capital Reserve, that's what we call it, Structural Replacement and Capital Reserve. And I would like to note that my understanding is that these are unique circumstances. And so what we are asking for is that these two projects be funded out of that reserve, but that request be, I think the terminology is without prejudice, meaning that we have no intention that these requests should become a precedent for a discussion, like I said, that is ongoing. And so we would in our request include
lines of the request would be without prejudice. So I just wanted to clarify what we are and aren't asking with this motion. So that's some clarity from my understanding of these two motions. Would anyone like to raise questions or raise any points before we actually introduce the motions to the floor? Karen.
Thanks, Eagle. That was a helpful background and context. I guess I'm just curious in the sort of acknowledgement of the work underway to look at the roads and sort of prioritization across the whole system, what's repair, what's replacement. Was there any conversation with the board on looking at the contingency reserve rather than the infrastructure capital reserve? I'm just curious. I don't have an opinion either way. I just wondered if that had come up in the board's conversation.
So I'm seeing Jake shaking his head no, and I just want to clarify, you mean contingency reserve of the neighbors fund?
Yes.
I can't say that we have proposed that, no. Yeah.
It wasn't discussed.
No.
Okay.
It was felt that this is where it should come out of. And contingency is a contingency for something that's not planned, is a short-term emergency, whereas the other one is more set up for ongoing.
And also to just keep in mind that this is a unique circumstance and two unique projects that are uniquely placed in terms of the timeline of figuring out both the question of whether the UNA or UBC should manage certain projects, as well as which source of funding is appropriate for any given project, right? And because of that, we are talking. I think there seems to be a logic from the neighbors agreement that any kind of repair or replacement of roads should come from the infrastructure replacement and capital reserve. I mean, that's kind of, and if you go look at the Schedule E of the neighbors agreement, that's where it lays out that's the appropriate place to draw from. So that just was the logic that we followed.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We're gonna have a.
I know, we're gonna have an upset here. Yeah, I guess the work is to understand, the work underway right now is to help understand the prioritization and sort of system-wide repairs. But that's a big question mark, so I appreciate that this is a unique situation. Yeah.
And I will say that we eagerly anticipate the results of the engineering survey, which will then give UNA staff and the UNA board a sense of these are the kinds of repairs, replacements, whatever that we anticipate, and it will put us as well as UBC in a position to think about where the line gets drawn, both for who manages and the funding source for the projects.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there's certainly as we as a board get used to dealing with some of the things in the neighbors agreement, there's a number of misses of clarity, and this one it's really nebulous when you start reading it. I mean, depending on what side of the table I want to sit, I could argue both sides of some of those definitions.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be spelled out more clearly.
Yeah.
It just because it just leads to crap like this.
Yeah.
For lack of better words, that we can't come to a decision on something. Where's it come from? Does it come from this account? Does it come from this account? And then all the agenda that goes with it and all the emails sent and everything, the pages and pages we've written about this, and God knows I've written half of those pages at least. It just needs to be clarified
Yeah,
to go forward.
absolutely, yeah. I think the other helpful sort of operationalization of all of this, I couldn't agree with you more, Jake. That work is so important to get clarity and help inform decision making moving forward. Right now, I think from an operational perspective, it's also really helpful that UNA staff are meeting with UBC Municipal Services, which isn't campus planning, but ultimately municipal services, like the roads are their asset. So they need to have a part of the process in prioritizing and understanding, you know, what repairs happen when and what the scope and scale of those repairs are. And it's hard to declare that without in a bit of a vacuum. So I think, you know, we're all very much looking forward to having this team conclude. And in the meantime, just continue to coordinate on the operational stuff as best as we can.
And there is perhaps an understanding that these kinds of both engineering surveys and conversations do take time, but just, you know, keep in mind that the UNA and ultimately UBC as the landowner, we do have an obligation to residents and motorists and pedestrians for that matter, to maintain the infrastructure in a reasonably, you know, safe and aesthetically manner. And so we can't just wait indefinitely on some of these projects, and that's what happened here. And you probably are there pending neighbors on Westbrook, and it's getting worse and worse. And that's actually mentioned specifically in the neighbors agreement.
The ones that in the village out
Yeah,
here?
yeah, you know, the buses and et cetera. Yes, we have to, you know, come to carefully informed agreements on, you know, who's responsible for what and what are the priorities and how this funding happens. But some of these things can only let go for so long before people say, like, what is this? You know, do we really live in this kind of a city? Is the universe, our city out here? Is it really the kind where there are enormous potholes that don't get handled for a year or more, even after it's clear that there are problems? So anyway, I just want to, and this is for our benefit as board members and you know, the staff, I think, are well aware of concerns about the infrastructure, but regardless of how much we negotiate, we need to be attentive to, you know, the state of our roads and our sidewalks.
Yeah, and what's a exactly what's a space that looks at sort of, and again, the priorities rather than this case. The whack-a-mole pieces, which I think you and Jake, you both had, that's perfect, something that worked to happen. I appreciate that.
Okay, are we ready for me to, I can read the motions? So I move that the board requests that UBC withdraw from the Neighbors Fund Infrastructure Reserve and pay to the UNA an amount equal to the UNA expenditures to be incurred in the Hampton Place Decorative Concrete Project, an amount estimated to be approximately $75,000, following the withdrawal and payments processes established in the Neighbors 2024. So I just do them together. And that UBC be requested to withdraw from the Neighbors Fund Infrastructure Reserve and pay to the UNA an amount equal to the UNA's expenditures incurred on the Hampton Place East Roundabout repaving project, an amount of $82,897 following withdrawal and payments process established in the Neighbors Agreement. Do I have a second? Seconded by Jake. And I will just note, you know, in the discussion that should this pass, when we make that public request, we would include the language
without prejudice and indicate that precedent is meant to address only these two pressing projects in the interim until agreements can be made. Yes.
I just wanted to, for the benefit of the board members who haven't had a motion like this before, it will come back to UBC, and then UBC needs to formally sort of acknowledge it. So I think there's some work that we need to do internally at UBC once we receive this motion, and then come back to the UNA board with further information based on whatever the motion is.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carol. And I'll just add on behalf of the board, appreciate expeditious treatment of this. And I say that in particular because one of the projects that's projected is one that, we have tenders, is that the thing, right? And there's a kind of a window in which projects can be completed. And so it'd be great to know. Reasonably soon, this is something that can be approved.
Sorry, I hate to drag this motion out. I just, just to follow up on your point, Wendland, have you been coordinating with municipal services on the tender and scope of work for this particular project?
For this particular project, we have not coordinated with the municipal folks, but if it is a requirement, we can certainly look into that and start setting up meeting with Jen and her team.
Are you requesting that they do that, or is it a requirement?
I think we'll just get the motion, and then UBC can respond accordingly to the motion with additional information, including requirements or next steps. I'm not prepared to speak to UBC's response, and I can't because I think this requires a bit more internal coordination. So I'll just leave it at that. We'll wait till we get the motion, and then noting your request for an expeditious response, we'll take that back and try to get back to you soon after.
Thanks so much. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Are there any questions or further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right, motion carries.
Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to new business, and in particular, a letter received on behalf of the Thames Court Stratton Council, and I'll introduce this this item. I think I'll just note that this was a letter that was sent to the board of directors, and so as chair, I felt like on our behalf, I needed to first of all bring it to the board, and then just decide what we do with it. Essentially, it has to do with questions and concerns related to the UNA's approach to dealing with the ash trees in Hampton Place. And as I think the board is well aware, this is something about which the board has discussed some in the past, but on the whole, it's something that's handled through our operations team, and they have tried to approach this question of dealing with the ash trees in a systematic and say professional way, with consulting with arborists, coming up with a management plan and all that. My suggestion, and I'll make this as a motion in a moment, is that I, the chair, on behalf of the board, write a letter of response that essentially just politely explains what the UNA's approach to the management of ash trees in Hampton Place is. So just describing it, and describing how that they can provide input or feedback if they wish to, relating to landscaping. I don't think anything dramatic is required. I think a pretty straightforward answer is appropriate, but I didn't want to speak for the board without consulting with you. And so that's why I asked that a motion be put on the agenda about this. So with that, I will move that the board authorize the chair to write a letter of response outlining the UNA's approach to tree management and community consultation about trees and plants. I have a second, seconded by Jade. Is there any discussion relating to our response to this letter? Yeah, Sandy.
Thanks for this motion, Eagle. I remember that UNA is preparing for tree management of portfolio. Yeah. So I think perhaps next month is ready. How that relationship? We write you write letter and that is the possible there.
I'm not sure I understood everything, but other people seem to have, so I'll let Redmond just respond.
I can provide an update. So the UNA tree management operation guideline is circulated with UBC campus planning at the moment. It is being reviewed by their landscaping architects and also their municipal team. And at this moment, we are expecting UBC campus planning will get back to us sometime in February. So the idea is we are targeting for a February board updates for that. But having said that, because we are going through a winter break and there are people on vacation, so I will follow up with UBC to see where the timeline is. Originally was planned for February, but I can update the follow-up.
Yeah, I'll just ask, Wetland, do you think that given the state of our work towards not just the tree management plan, but actually towards, a management plan for the ash trees in Hampton, do you think we have enough that we can kind of outline that, the basic outlines of it in a letter to this resident of the strata?
Yes, I think so. In terms of the ash tree, on January, we will also begin our meeting with our arborists to develop a long-term strategic management plan. So in terms of base work, I think we have pretty much the base work that now is more how we refine and fine-tune our strategic plan.
Okay. It seems possible that we'll be able to pull together enough to write a letter to this in response to this letter. Any further questions? Yeah, Carol.
I was just, I totally agree that I've seen the draft from that Woodland has put forward for the tree management protocol that's currently being reviewed by campus planning. And I also feel like it's in, you would probably do this anyway in your response, but that we and the UNA will always rely on arborist and technical expertise to determine the right approach for dealing with trees. So the characterization of a UNA board member sort of having having the ultimate say on what happens to trees is not accurate, because ultimately it defaults to arborist and technical expertise to help drive those decisions, which I think is a really important sort of emphasis to make in whatever sort of response. And Wetland and the report, I'm sure, will also have that theme throughout it.
Yes, thanks, Carol. I think the letter will have the word arborist several times.
The answer to your question, though, I think we do want to be careful what we're saying about the operational guidelines until they're finalized and adopted by the board. So I think we get to the response, we certainly talk about that they're being developed, they're following best practices, arborists, CFIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. but until they're adopted by everyone, they remain as a draft. Because what I wouldn't want is for then the neighborhoods to say, well, show us the guidelines, which we can't do yet. So we just have to be slightly cautious about it. But there's definitely enough information to respond. Also.
And with that in mind, just say I appreciate help drafting my plan from this. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? That motion carries. And that brings us to the end of our open session. So we will take a 5-minute break. And let's just say we'll convene at 8, so a couple minutes more than 5 minutes. We can refill our waters. And then